My name is Tess Freiberger, 26 years old. I grew up in Dubuque County and I live in Holy Cross currently. Growing up on a farm, definitely enjoyed the not having any neighbors, but life was a little simpler, it was a lot quieter. We were a little more self-sufficient out there, just with, my parents always had like vegetable gardens and stuff like that. So, and it was quiet, and you move to town and it's a lot noisier, busier, crowded. So I definitely prefer the farm life.
Good deal. So kind of taking us back a little bit about your experiences on the farm, do you ever remember there being a storm and was there any concern about electricity, making sure you had reliable electricity to your buildings, or same thing with your LP? Was there ever a concern about anything surrounding your LP and making sure that you had the heating element or the gas element coming to your home?
As far as the LP, I don't remember ever really, at least from my remembrance of much. My parents might be able to speak differently to it, but I know as far as electric, there have been a couple times where we lose power for just a little bit. I remember a couple of years ago we lost it for maybe an hour or two, and we were pretty well able to take care of ourselves in that hour or two. We have flashlights out there. It's not like just lights around the corner or neighbors. So we had flashlights and the lantern, and we stayed in there and we hung out until the power came back on. As far as the wires, I know sometimes the wires from our house, go to different buildings. So we have like the barn and then some of the outdoor buildings that all have power lines where sometimes one would get disconnected or what have you, and just have someone come out and reconnect it. But never have we ever, I don't think, lost it for a significant amount of time where we were, worried about the food going bad in the fridge or anything like that. So out there, Maquoketa Valley does a really good job of taking care of it as far as I knew. So.
Yeah, Maquoketa Valley. So can you take us a little bit on a journey with your experiences with reliable energy growing up on the farm, and then also talking about your energy, conversations that you've had possibly with landlords or anything like that along your journey of life?
As far as energy out on our farm, we don't have like a water bill out there. We have a well. We use well water. Gas was always LP, so no natural gas or any of that. It was always an LP bill. So moving into the city, I got water bills, got gas bills, electric bills. So it was a bit of a change to know that I had all of those to pay for. So it's just a little different moving from one to the other.
Can you talk maybe a little bit about your experiences with some places that you've lived and maybe some of the energy expenses that you had? I know you said it was kind of a shock to take on those expenses monthly.
Yeah, so our first, my husband and I's first place was in Dyersville, and it was an old building, it was above a restaurant, so we were responsible for water, electric, and it seemed, electric always seemed a little bit higher. Not to mention it didn't have air, so we had to run an AC unit in the window, and the other downside was there was only 4 windows and they all faced the same direction, so half of our apartment had no lighting, so we were always turning on the lights in our kitchen and our bathroom and one of our bedrooms because they had no windows. So there's a bit higher of an electric bill. When we moved to our mobile home, we rented the lot, so we paid water from them, but water bill was included in our lot rent, so there wasn't much of a bill, so much to speak, as they had their own well, and we had electric, and that was the only electric we had. So it was not too bad in a mobile home, so it was definitely cheaper than the electric that we paid for in the apartment, surprisingly, even though we had central air and we had a whole home to do rather than just a small apartment. But the apartment was far worse. So.
Sure. And now you say you're living in Holy Cross. Can you talk a little bit about possibly, space that you're living in?
Yeah, absolutely. So our current apartment is actually in a old school building. And from what I can see from our previous residence that we used to live in Wisconsin, our bills went down cost-wise. It seems to, I don't notice our heater going as much during the winter when we were here as I did in our old house. And part of that was there was a lot of draftiness. There was holes in the ceiling in our previous rentals. So a lot of hot air got out of places where I definitely wanted to keep hot air. So this place, it stays pretty warm. I don't have to heat it very long or for very much. In addition to that, these few hot days that we have had, it stayed very, very cool. I have not yet turned on my air, even on some of the pretty hot days where normally people are tempted to turn it on. Didn't even have to open a window because it stayed very cool. So I definitely like that. We do pay water up there in Holy Cross. It's nothing outrageous. I think in my opinion, it's not bad. So yeah, the electric was great. We do not pay gas out there. It's included in our apartment rent, so we just are responsible for electric. So we signed up for some budget billing, which helps a little bit, and it's not too bad. So,
can you talk a little bit about the budget billing and how that works with you and Michael?
Yeah, so our bill was around $100, give or take. With the budget billing, it dropped it down to, I believe it was about 60 something. It's on automatic replenishment, so I don't see it all too often. I just let it take care of itself. But yeah, we chose to drop it down just because it did get a little higher, obviously, in the winter because it still was heating. So we signed up for that through Alliant, and it's helped. So, and now we're good. So,
do you have any tips for future renters for when they go to start to look for places, especially in our rural communities?
Yeah, definitely when we moved from Dickeyville to Holy Cross, one of the big reasons we moved was because of our energy bills up in Dickeyville, not to anything to the power companies up there, just more to the house that we were renting in. So my recommendation to anyone that's looking for a place to rent is to don't be afraid to ask. Also, what utilities you're paying for. Make sure it's very clear that you're paying, if you're paying electric, if you're paying for heat, if you're paying for water, if you're paying for gas. Also, when you go and, most people will be able to tour the apartment or wherever they're renting, take a look at the windows and see if they're newer looking or if they look kind of old, worn down, if you can feel a breeze or even see it, if there's a curtain kind of moving and you can tell it's drafty, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you're walking through a place. Luckily, when we walked through our apartment in Holy Cross, he was replacing the windows, so that was all new, and everything felt, the room felt warm, and luckily we've been very fortunate that we've not had any issues at all with draftiness or anything. Also, I've asked our landlord, what do bills, utilities usually run in that apartment, just as obviously different people's different usage. So if you're a person that leaves the lights on all the time, it's going to be a little higher. So we definitely asked, what it kind of looked like as far as our water bill, our electric bill, what it kind of ran in that apartment, and made that part of our decision-making process on whether or not we wanted to move there or not. So definitely take a look at the surroundings, check your windows. It's usually a good indicator if you're going to be paying heating like crazy in the winter, especially in this weather in Iowa, and just ask the landlord. At least in my experience, most landlords will tell you pretty forwardly that what the bills look like in the apartment. So.